Well, I hope I'm recording to the right place. So thank you again for joining. So we have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll be using. So Kelly is sharing her screen now, and I'll be talking about our grant making priorities and strategy. Next slide. So Legacy Foundation is the community foundation for Lake County. And as the community foundation, we have a broad mandate to serve our area across multiple fields of interest. So some foundations that you might be familiar with, such as some corporate foundations or family foundations, might have a specific area that they give all their funding, whether that's maybe environment or healthcare. And as a community foundation, our area of interest is really quality of place. And so we are looking specifically at Lake County, Indiana, and how do we make Lake County the best place to live? And so we do that by providing grants to nonprofit organizations, by providing scholarships to students attending college, and by providing active leadership throughout the communities. We work with the organizations and with the communities to understand and anticipate the community needs and to be able to quickly respond to the trends that we're seeing. Next slide. And so we work specifically with the nonprofit organizations to improve their capabilities, knowledge, and resources. And so we look at how can our funds empower the organizations, the residents in our communities to participate collectively in community transformation efforts. We all know that none of us can do it alone as individuals or as organizations. And so how can we strengthen the quantity, the quality of the services that are being provided so that we can all work together better to have a stronger community? And so I'm going to just read this word for word because this is a statement that we had developed in 2020, and it's an important statement on what we're looking for and how we approach our grant making. So for more than 25 years, Legacy Foundation's grants have invested in strengthening the social fabric of our communities. In 2021, Transform Lake County grants will continue to support our communities with a sharpened focus on the most pressing challenges that our community is facing today. I guess that should say 2022 now. The impact of COVID-19, systemic racism and racial injustice, and the underinvestment and lack of infrastructure in under-resourced and marginalized communities across Lake County. This funding opportunity recognizes that deeply entrenched inequities mean that our current challenges and resulting traumas are disproportionately impacting some populations and communities. Next slide. So our values and commitments for our grant making is that we're committed to funding across Lake County with grant dollars reaching our rural, suburban, and urban communities. We try to look at how we can make sure that we're impacting all people in all communities. We give a high priority to investments that are strength-based and create a positive substantive change that address issues at their root cause. And so as you're looking at your project and your organization, really think about that root cause piece and how is your organization, how is your project or program looking to not just put a Band-Aid on the issue, but it can be something that can really have a sustainable impact and address whatever social concern that you're looking to address at its root cause. We prioritize investments that demonstrate strong community support, solid planning, and wise stewardship. And so looking at, have you worked with the community to develop what project you're looking to do, or with other organizations, with your local government? Can you demonstrate in some way that you have the support of others in what you're proposing to do? And of course, we work with donors. So our funds, our dollars that we grant out come from donors who want to invest in the community. And we want to make sure that we're good stewards of the donors' funds. And so that's something that's important to us. And we believe that impactful, creative, and sustainable solutions come from people closest to the issues being addressed and implemented by organizations trusted by the community. And so as a community foundation, I think that's one of our strengths is our ability to be able to, we're located in Lake County, in the communities that we're working with. We work closely with a lot of you on the call. I know a lot of you on the call, and so we're working closely with the organizations, with the communities, and we want to make sure that the organizations that we're working with are trusted by the communities that they're providing services to. Resident leadership development. And so we encourage and fund initiatives that give residents opportunities to build relationships and have a voice in the future of their community. Grassroots grant making, giving more power to overspending to the people that it is supposed to help. And so how would our grants to your organization help people to have a voice in the solutions that you're looking to implement, right? I think both of those things are going to that, is how are they engaging the people that you're working with, and how are they giving a voice to them? Place-based impact, so continuing to form strategic place-based work. We believe in the importance of neighborhoods and communities, and so looking at how are we working to engage and empower neighborhoods in the work that's happening. We think that it's important to leverage resources. And so if you, through your application, you're able to use Legacy's funding to seek opportunities to attract and leverage other states, national, philanthropic, or government resources into Lake County, then that's something that is, that we like to see happening, because we don't have a lot of philanthropic resources just within Lake County. And so we know that the dollars that we have in Lake County cannot alone achieve the change that we need to see. And so if we're able to help an investment leverage additional dollars, or get a pilot project going that would then possibly result in bringing in additional funding, then that's something that we want to see, and build up the capacity of the organizations to be in a place where you can be competitive with other state and national dollars. And then the other one of our priority areas is IDEA. And so that is our acronym for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. And you'll see on the grant application that there are a number of questions that relate to your organization's commitment to IDEA. And so that should be interwoven with everything that you're doing as an organization. And so some priority areas, organizations with a budget under $2 million. So we want to see that Legacy, and just this list of priority areas, you don't need to check all the boxes. You don't need to meet all of these things, but this is just things that we do take into consideration and look at as we're evaluating proposals. So we do give priority to organizations with a budget under $2 million. We want to see that Legacy's dollars are having an impact and are really addressing and helping community-based organizations. That the proposed request aims to address the issue at its source, so the root cause, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Organizations that have not received consecutive grants from Legacy Foundation in recent years get priority. We do not commit to multi-year funding at this point, and so we try to make sure that we're helping multiple areas of interest and different organizations, and that's one of the things with us having the broad mandate that we do, in that we work with environmental groups and youth services and seniors, is that we want to make sure that we're trying to work with different organizations in different areas of Lake County and not give to the same organization year after year. Innovative and new ideas. So you want to keep in mind as you're writing your grant application that our review committee is reviewing a lot of grant applications each cycle. And so they might be reading multiple applications for a similar thing. And so even if it's a new approach or a new idea, try to make sure that your application is in some way innovative or new, or that can be something that would be a little bit different for the or for the grant review committee to be looking at. Proposals that will help improve services or eliminate duplication. And so we want to see how what you're proposing to do is going to either take something that's already being done and how can we do it better, or we do see, that there's a lot of duplication of services and overlap, and then there's other areas where there's complete gaps. And so how are you looking to partner with another organization so that we can leverage what other groups are doing and eliminate some of the duplication that we see? Proposals that help implement an organization's strategic plan. And so that can be around just a regular strategic planning process. That could be around if you have an organization that has an IDEA or a DEI plan, COVID recovery plan. So, it can be looking at a specific plan that you're looking to implement, but if there's a planning process that existed within your organization and you're looking for funding that would help carry that plan forward, I think that is something that is good to see for the committee, that this is helping, move forward some sort of strategic objective that your organization has. Proposals that are driven by the community and or include outreach and involvement from the community. And so we had talked about that a little bit earlier, that it's important that you're engaging the community and the residents. I think the if you build it, they will come phrase doesn't always apply. And so it's important to make sure that, you've talked to the people that whatever that program that you're building is or implementing, that you've talked to the people and that this is something that they want for their community. Proposals that have a financial match or that can use legacy funding to leverage additional resources. We talked about that. And IDEA. Applications must be able to demonstrate that the organization has the capacity to carry out the proposed work. And so if you are an all-volunteer organization, have you ever taken on a project like the one you're proposing? Do you know that you have the volunteer base or the commitment from your board, from your team to be able to do what you're proposing to do? Or if you have staff, is it something that your organization has the capacity to do? That the project is clearly defined with a timeline and the action steps. And we'll get into the application questions themselves a little bit later on, but making sure that, you only have a certain amount of space in the application. And so oftentimes we'll see in this question where it's, and we'll get specifically to it, but where it asks, what is it that you're looking to do with this, project, or what is it that you're requesting funding for? And the applicant will repeat their organization's mission statement or give broad information on, statistics of these are the needs of after school programs. And it really doesn't get to, we walk away from reading the application still not really understanding what is it that you're requesting the funding for and what is it you're going to do with the funding. And so make sure that that's really clear in those questions, and that the funding from legacy will be impactful, that the budget is clearly defined and the costs are reasonable. And so in the question that we ask, how much you're requesting and what are you going to use it for? If you're requesting $15,000, we don't want to say, we don't want it to say $15,000 is being requested to support after school programming. We need the specific, clearly defined breakdown of what are the costs and how is legacy funding going to be spent. Clear and achievable outcomes. So that is, what is the impact that you're looking to have through this grant? What are the outcomes? And so going back to after school programming, if it's that you are going to be serving 30 youth per day through an after school program, that you want to see homework, or school grades improve by 20%. So make sure that you have very clear and achievable outcomes, that the project is sustainable without requiring ongoing funding in future years. As I mentioned, we don't commit to multi-year funding. And so something that our committee will look at is it something that is an investment that can be sustainable with the organization? And so if you're requesting funding for something like to get rental of a new office space, we want to make sure that after that 12-month period of this grant is over, that you all of a sudden aren't in a position where now you can't afford the rent anymore because you don't have the legacy grant and didn't build in a way to be able to fundraise for that, or or have it in your budget to be able to do that. And so things like salaries and rent are always a little bit tricky and questionable, I would say, without having a really clear way of being able to demonstrate the sustainability. And then the necessary collaborations have been established and formalized with attached documentation. And so for that, we look at if your proposal is, let's say what you're doing, you're saying that you're going to partner with a school district. And so we want to see that some sort of letter, attached email, memorandum of understanding, whatever you can attach that would provide documentation that that school district has agreed to partner with you and to work with you on this project. Because otherwise what we've seen is, if an organization waits until after they've received the grant, it can sometimes take a year to form those partnerships, or, then they'll call 6 months later and say, the school that we had proposed to work with hasn't been calling us back. We can't get into the school. So if there's a collaboration that is a necessary part of your proposal, we want to make sure that we see that, that partner has agreed to, and that you have documentation that they will be working with you. So looking at goals, and that would be, in the outcomes that you list in your proposal, they can be both qualitative and quantitative. And so for quantitative, you want to be able to report statistics, show the scale of the impact. So that would be, numbers served, specifically jobs, jobs created, health outcomes improved, and the desired outcome there. So when you're looking at qualitative, a lot of that can be done and collected through surveys. And so attitudes changed, perceptions that have been changed, partnerships that have been created. And so that can be looking at, those are different ways that you can look at reporting and collecting on impact that you're having. And so as we look at some examples of some more specific examples, diverse residents gaining skills and knowledge, and that can be collected through skill surveys. You can look at diverse residents volunteering and acting together. And so if your goal is to improve community engagement, you can use volunteer sign-in sheets or sign-in sheets from community meetings that you're having. If you're looking at groups and nonprofits, organizations working together to achieve a common goal. You can collect that through meetings that you're having. So maybe starting off with saying that you're pulling together foster care agencies to collaborate together. And your goal is to have 6 foster care agencies by the end of the year that are working together on this. And so that could be collected through community minutes or sign-in sheets as well. So those are just some examples of how you can have kind of metrics that you're looking at collecting that are beyond just numbers served or, health outcomes. And so we have what you're on the call for right now is our Transform Lake County grant. But what we did last year to try to kind of simplify the process for the organization so that you're not having to apply for multiple grants and submit multiple applications is we did create one common grant application for all of our different funds that we use to feed into our Transform Lake County grant application. And so Transform Lake County is funded through what we call it Legacy, our Lake County Community Fund. And that is our largest unrestricted fund that helps support projects and programs in Lake County. But we also have in our November, December grant cycle, Thriving Hobart Seniors so Thriving Hobart Seniors, and then in this grant cycle, Women in Philanthropy will help support grant decisions that are made by the committee. And so what we do is internally, once we receive the applications, we'll go through and look at the applications and determine if it would qualify as a Women in Philanthropy grant under the criteria that have been created by the Women in Philanthropy group. And if it does, we'll send it on to them for review. And so your grant could end up coming from Women in Philanthropy. It could end up coming from, our Lake County Community Fund. And we also have a couple other funds that, our Lake County Youth Fund. We have an environmental fund. And so through that, we've created this one main grant cycle that helps support all of our Transform Lake County grants. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Can you go back, Kelly? Sorry. I was looking at the date. So Transform Lake County for this cycle opens April 1st. So that's today. And it is due May 1st. Notification is around June 15th to July 1st. So about 6 to 8 weeks after the grant is due, you'll receive notifications. I apologize, that date needs to be updated on there. And then we have a September grant cycle as well. So that'll be our fall grant cycle. So if you miss the application, if you don't have time to apply, if you or even if you're declined for this grant cycle, you can come back, get feedback on maybe why your application was declined, and then apply in the fall. All right, you want to go to the next one? So we also have 2 other grant opportunities that are currently available, but always keep an eye out because throughout the year, we'll have other funding sources that come in, different initiatives that we announce. And so, you can keep an eye on our website, also sign up to be on our email distribution list. And you can do that by going to our website at www.legacyfdn.org and scroll to the bottom of the page. And there you can put in your email to be on our distribution list, because we do have other opportunities that come out through the year. And that way you'll receive an announcement whenever a new grant opportunity opens. Review process. So the staff review the applications as soon as they come in to make sure that they qualify. And from there, the grants go on to the grant review committee, who are a volunteer group committee of community members and community leaders who review and vote on all the funding decisions. For Transform Lake County, the grants range from $2,000 to $25,000. And funding decisions are then all sent to our board for approval and communicated to the applicants about 6 to 8 weeks after the application is due. So we do not fund for-profit businesses and organizations. So you have to be a nonprofit in order to apply. We do not make grants to individuals. Through our grant application process, we do not grant scholarships. We do have a whole separate scholarship process. We do not fund any proposals that promote a particular religion, political affiliation, or lobbying, or any proposal that discriminates. We do not fund any post-expenditure requests or debts. And so anything that you're requesting funding for has to be something that you cannot start spending the grant money until you are notified of the grant award. We do not fund fundraisers, capital campaigns, or publications for resale. We do not fund schools, so K through 12 schools, public, private, or charter. However, and schools are so important to our community, unfortunately, we just don't have enough funding at Legacy Foundation to be able to provide grants to our school districts. However, we will work with nonprofit groups and partnerships that are working in collaboration with the schools. And so if your nonprofit is looking to propose to work with a school or with multiple schools, then, we can fund your organization to help provide programs and services within the schools or in partnerships with schools. I am available to you or your organization to meet with prior to submitting your organization, and definitely recommend having that you have that meeting, especially if either we're not very familiar with your organization, or if you haven't previously received a grant, or it's been a long time since you've received a grant. It's helpful to, I think for me to learn more about your organization and what you're doing. And then I think it's hopefully also helpful for you to be able to come to that meeting with an idea for what your grant request is. And I can provide feedback on if, if that's a potential good fit for a grant request, and get a better understanding of what you're looking to do. Only one Transform Lake County grant can be awarded in a 12-month period, and you have to have submitted your final report before you can apply for another grant. And so if you received a Transform Lake County grant in December of 2021, you are not eligible to apply during this grant cycle. You'll have to wait at least until the next grant cycle, and you'll also have to submit your final report before you can apply for this grant. Now, I know there are a number of organizations that have not submitted final reports that are kind of behind on them, and I've been following up with some of them. And so if your organization, is delinquent on a previous final report, you might want to check on that and make sure that you are eligible to receive a grant. So here's a little list I put together of some of the common mistakes that we see in grant writing. Not following instructions and guidelines, and not answering the questions asked, I think kind of go hand in hand. Is just make sure, with that, just make sure that you're carefully reading the grant application questions and answering the questions exactly as they're posed to you. And so, and without too much embellishment or additional information added, make sure that the purpose of the grant is clear. Have somebody else review the application before you submit to check for grammar mistakes and typos. Sometimes in our industries, we get really, caught up in using jargon and catchphrases, and sometimes we don't even realize we're using them because we're so, it's our day-to-day language that we use. But keep in mind that the grants review committee may not know every acronym that you're using or some of the jargon for your specific industry. And so, making sure that that the grant is presented in a way that is clear to somebody that is not doing what you do on a daily basis. An unclear budget. And I would also add an over embellished budget to that as well. So if you're asking for, a laptop and you're saying that the cost of the laptop is going to be $2,500, we know that that's a really expensive laptop. And so our committee is going to say, why are they asking, for $2,500 for a single laptop? Is there a specific reason that they need, this whatever MacBook Pro 5000, or is that just embellished? So making sure that that it's clear that or that if you're saying $500 for t-shirts, just be specific. Say that we want 50 t-shirts at $10 each. That the objectives do not match the problem, and so making sure that that there's a common thread throughout your whole application. So what is it you're looking to do? How are you going to do it? Who are you doing it for? Why are you doing it? And in the timeline, when are you doing it? And making sure that all those questions, that there's a common thread throughout it, so that it all kind of matches, that the who are you doing and why are you doing it for, and how, that it all kind of makes sense to the story that you're telling. That necessary collaborations have not been established, organization lacks capacity, and additional funding has not been secured. And I'll talk about that one for a second too, is that, if your overall project is $100,000, you're asking Legacy Foundation for $15,000, and there's an $85,000 gap, and let's say your organization does not have a history of raising $85,000, then how we want to make sure then that project or that proposal would probably be declined, because we're going to say there's an $85,000 gap, and and we have concerns with being able to raise the funds to execute the project. And so one of the things that we'll look at is, if there is additional funding needed for the project, have you secured those additional funds? What is the gap that exists? And is the gap that does exist, is it realistic that your organization will be able to raise the additional funds? The application process. So I think that's, Kelly, you're taking over now?
Yep, we're going to stop with the screen share there and let me pull up our website so that we can actually go through this together in the live site. Were there any burning questions that anybody had before we move on? Okay. All right, so hopefully you can all see the screen of our website. So when you're ready to apply for the grant, you're going to come to our website, to the grants login button that's here at the top. And like Kelly said, we just transitioned to this new software last fall. So if you have not applied for a grant since last fall, you most likely will need to create a new account. If you have been in before, log on is here, forgot your password below. If you're convinced that you have a login and it's just not working for you, reach out to me first. Let me go in and take a look rather than creating a new account, because we want all of your grant applications to be tied together. So for the purposes of walking through, we're going to create a new account here. And this information is not asked for anywhere else in the application. So it's important that all of this information does get entered in here. Just for speed, I'm gonna skip over the items that don't have asterisks by them. But since that becomes part of the application, it is an important piece. Right, and we'll continue on. You do have the option to copy the address information over so that you don't have to type all of that over again. And again, we ask that you not skip the items that are not required, but just for speed, I'm going to skip them. And continue on. If you are not the executive director of the organization that's entering the information, you would click no and give that information to us so that we have a full profile for your organization for who you are, as well as the executive director. If you are, then obviously you say yes. And then there's just 2 additional pieces of information that you can fill out for us, but they're not required. And then just the password. So nice and easy, and we have an account that's created for us. All of the information that we talk about with you for award notification, for follow-up forms, if you are awarded, that all happens through email. So it is important to check and make sure that you can get those notifications from the system. We'll pretend that we said yes, but for the sake of time, we'll continue without checking. But that just makes sure that you don't miss out on knowing that you got your application and you got your award. Then that's going to take us to our main dashboard screen here that has everything that's open that you can apply for. Those opportunities.
Dave Micah just asked if this is an individual registration or an organizational registration. He said he's new to the organization, but the organization has applied before. So does he need to create an individual new account?
In that case, call and talk to me. Let me look and see who is in the system. If you type in an EIN number that exists in the system, you're going to get a notification that that EIN number exists. It's just trying to prevent 5 different people from having outdated accounts. And so we can look, if it's a university program, they might need 5 different accounts. But if it's a smaller group, you might not. So if you either get that message or not sure, give me a call and we can look and see who has the account in there, because maybe you took their place and we need to get that updated. So once you're on the main screen to apply, the first step is filling out the eligibility quiz. The preview button you saw on the other side, that just lists these questions for you. It's not a preview of the application itself. So we're going to answer these quickly. If you answer them and get an ineligible message back and you feel you've reached that in error, then let me know and I can look into it and see what might have been answered incorrectly and reopen that for you if necessary.
And our goal there, we want to make sure that your organization has the appropriate oversight. So we're asking, do you have a board of directors that meets at least 4 times a year? Do you have a code of conduct, a conflict of interest policy? And so if you are saying no to that, it might be needing to go back then and, reconvene your board and make sure that your board is having 4 meetings a year and that you do have a conflict of interest policy. And so some of those things, like developing a policy, you might be able to get in place and apply for the grant in time. Other things, we will want to know that you are meeting regularly as a board. And, and it might be that if you can't say yes to that, then you'll have to schedule your board meetings and apply, next year when you've had time to get an actively functioning board.
And then once we say yes, that we would like to apply, it takes us back to the dashboard screen again, where we do need to click once more, yes, we do want to apply. Just so that I can show you some additional pieces that are not going to be available for a brand new applicant, I'm going to log on as myself. And this way you can see some things you couldn't before. So let me just get back to our application. Okay, so now we're right back where we were before. So this is the information here that you put in from creating your account. The system will allow you to edit the applicant side using the little pencil icon here. It doesn't allow you to update the organization information. So if your organization moves, you get a new address, you would need to call me and let me go in and change that. The system talks to our financial side that pays out the grant. And so it doesn't want to chance that you go in, update your address, but the other half of the system doesn't know that. And then we end up mailing the check to the wrong place. So that's why it does that. If you need to go to your website to get a piece of information for the grant, you can just click on this little world here and it will open up a new tab, take you right to your website, and you can copy in any information that you want. The questions that are here, they work just like words, so there's spell check. You've got some options for bold and underlining. You can use numbers, bullets, all of those sorts of things. So across the top here, I have applied for a TLC application in the past. And it would be really helpful to me if I could bring that information in, save me a lot of time in my application. So by clicking that box, it's going to show me all the options that I have for what could be brought over. And here I can see that there's 45 answers that it will move over for me. So I'm going to say yes, that I want to copy them. It's just telling me that if I have already entered in a piece of information in this application, it's not going to write over anything that I've done. It's just going to fill in blank places within the application. And it will put those answers in for me. Just make sure that you read those answers very carefully. It might be a similar project, but things may have changed. And so you want to make sure that you're getting in the most accurate information for this application. But it's a big time saver if you started something and just weren't able to finish it before. The software is linked to GuideStar. So anytime in the application, if you see this little star icon, you can link with that into GuideStar and it will pull in that information and fill in the question for you. Also, it might be really helpful to have someone else look at the application, either for editing or you don't know the finances, you don't know a piece of the application. You can send the person who does know that information an invite, enter in their email address, choose what you'd like them to do. Just look at it, make edits, or do everything. Look at it, edit it, and submit it. Send them a message, and when you invite them, they'll receive a link that gets them into the application, and it will walk them through logging in and viewing the application for you. So that can be really helpful if you need someone else to look up something for you to get that piece. If you need help on the application itself or using the collaborator, there's tutorials at the top that can guide you through those steps. So the document viewer will show you all of the documents that you've uploaded, any letters of MOUs, pamphlets, anything like that. It'll just bring them up in one piece so that you can click on those. The question list is only going to show you the blank questions, just what you need to fill out. If you're looking to get a list of the questions with your answers, maybe it's easier for you to look at the application on paper and print it, just right-click anywhere in the application, click print, and that will print out with the answers that you've submitted. The due date and time are listed here at the top of the application. Make sure you keep an eye on that. At 5 o'clock promptly, the system will shut off and we will not reopen an application for edits or for uploads of any material. So just keep an eye on that. Whatever you title your program, that's going to carry through from the application to post awards, any forms that need to be filled out, that will all track. So just think about what you want to title your application. The system uses character counts instead of words. So there's a little chart here that can be handy to give you an idea of how many characters and words that you're looking for to complete. So we'll just highlight some of the questions that are in the application. Here you can see that my pretend answers were all imported. When you're uploading documents, those need to be uploaded as a single PDF. You can't upload one page and then another. It will just copy over what you already have. And the size limits are there as well. Expenses and revenue spots, make sure those match when you upload your org budget so that we have consistency there. And then if there's anything that you need us to know about your budget that might contribute to surplus, deficit, there's an opportunity to explain that.
And we do want to see that the expenses and revenues should, you should have a pretty balanced budget or at least close to balanced. And so I just want to point that because in Kelly's example, I think one of them was 22,000. Yeah, the expenses was 22,000 and the revenue is 35,000. And, percentage wise, it's like, all right, well, your organization has a pretty decent surplus. So why are you asking for a grant? So if they're, so you could, for the most part, have a balanced budget with expenses and revenue. being equal, or if there is a, little bit of a revenue, it should be nominal. And so if there is a reason that one is significantly higher or lower than the other, that's where you would use that line there to explain that.
If you do not have your 501c3, but you're working with someone else who's going to serve as the fiscal sponsor, there's the opportunity to tell us no and who you're going to be working with, because you might not have your nonprofit status, but we will grant to a fiscal sponsor that you're working with. For the W-9, we do ask that it be signed in the current year. If you need a link to the form, that's there, but please do make sure we ask for only page 1 and that it is signed and dated this year. The amounts that you're requesting and your project cost, those are here, and make sure that those match in the project budget that you fill out. We do require the use of this form. It's pulling up now a little slowly. When you see the form here, you're welcome to make some changes and edits to it. If there's a line item that doesn't pertain to you, you can see your organization doesn't have food costs, you're welcome to delete that line and add in something that does make sense for you. Kelly, you want to talk about the budget a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Are you able to pull the spreadsheet up?
Oh, it didn't show?
No.
Let's stop sharing and I'll reshare because I can see it. How about that?
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. So for the project income, you would list the funding source and then the amount from each funding source, whether that's committed or pending, and in kind or cash. And then for the expenses for the project, we have categories in there. We have a couple lines with categories you can add. But you can also, if you need to, feel free to just change our categories as well, if there's, that makes sense for your project. And so for those of you that may have applied a year or more ago for our grants, you'll notice that this is different. We used to have the columns that was the project, the legacy grant request, the project request, and then the organization budget. So we have gotten rid of the organization budget section because we listened to you and your feedback, and received a lot of feedback that this form didn't fit with how the organizations accounted for their budgets a lot of times. And so we have a separate place now in the application where you can attach your organization budget in whatever format you use to track your budget. So for this form, we're really just looking for the project that you're specifically requesting funding for. And so in the expenses line, you'll see that there are the two columns though. And there's the specific for legacy grant requests. So the 15,000 or whatever that you're requesting from legacy, if you can break down how that funding would be spent. And then let's say the total project budget is $100,000. Then, in that column, you would clarify how that $100,000 is being spent. So the legacy grant request would be a part of the total project budget. And then you can say if it's the in-kind cash or both, and any description that you may choose to include.
We'll stop sharing that one and get back to.
And of course, once again, income should equal expenses.
Okay, so hopefully you can see the application again. All right. And this is the section we were talking about before, where we're looking for that breakdown of how is the total request going to be spent. This really helps the committee. We might not be able to fund your entire grant, but maybe we really like this piece of it. It gives them the opportunity to look at specifics and fund parts, if not the whole. Documentation that we talked about earlier, estimates are really helpful. If you say that you need those computers, that you need fencing replacement, whatever that might be, this tells us that you have done your research and you know that what you're asking for is an accurate number. And the section here, that flags for us internally to look into other buckets for you. And so if you do fit, your project does fit one of these categories, yes, and that just tells us internally to send you off to another committee to be looked at. And we're moving right along with our application. Your project activities, as Kelly said, we don't fund expenses that were incurred prior to the grant date, and we do ask that the grant funds be used within a year. So just keep that in mind as you're filling that out, making sure that what you're doing fits in that timeline. And then if you are raising money for the project, we do have sections that you can tell us about funding that you might have that's either committed, pending, or if you're fundraising for it, what's your experience with raising funding? How much towards your goal are you? Just to give us that idea, are you going to be able to complete this project? The agency diversity section here that we talked about before. If you have an idea statement, there's a place to upload that. And then additional letters of support, memorandums of understanding, places for those to be uploaded as well. This system does not have you formally review your application before you submit it. So we do ask that you just confirm before you click that submit button that you have looked at the whole application, you're happy with it, and then submit. When you do try and submit, it's going to give you a list of anything that's not completed. And so if you go up and you do complete that, don't be alarmed. This box is not going to change. It's going to maintain those 3 things that you need to finish. So once you're convinced that you have completed them, just hit the resubmit button, but it's not going to take those away. If you decide during the process that this application, the time frame is just not going to work for you, you can't get it finished, if you click the abandon request, that will prevent you from getting future emails bothering you about the deadlines approaching, those sorts of things. And then it takes it off of our screen, so we're not looking at it as something that might be sent in for consideration.
And with the IDEA statement, sorry, Kelly, but
No,
with the IDEA statement and the questions around IDEA, we are going to be adding some examples onto our website. And so if your organization does not have that, then are you looking at it? And you can we'll put some places and resources where you can look for more information and find more information around that. And you don't need to use the term IDEA, that's our term, but you can use DEI or diversity and equity or whatever terminology your organization has adopted is fine. And also if you're, already let's say you're already a minority-led organization, there are other ways that you can address that. Like, do you look at accessibility? Do you make your events, inclusive for people who have, visual impairments, or so looking at, that it's not just looking at racial diversity and equity, but also for people who have all different types of abilities. And in different ways, is your organization looking at IDEA, and do you have ways that you're evaluating yourself and your board diversity? So so if you're not doing it, then what is your plan to start incorporating IDEA or DEI into your organization? And and it's something that we'd like to see all organizations start doing.
So we have submitted our application. We've gone through the process of review internally, and you get awarded a grant. Great news. So once you've been awarded, everything is going to happen through email. So you'll receive that notification, and then we ask that you log back into the system, and you'll be looking for a new section that will be visible to you for follow-up forms. And that will be your statement of conditions. If there's any, this is a matching grant, or this funding can only be used for XYZ, those sorts of details will be there electronically for you. And you'll agree to all of those and then provide an electronic signature and date. And then Legacy has also moved to paying the grants through ACH rather than paper checks. And so that ACH document will be there for you to complete. You'll upload a copy of your voided check, give us your banking information. And that way, as soon as we have both of those forms filled out and you've met any conditions, we're ready to go. And that payment can be made to you. And we'll send you a notification through email once that payment has been scheduled. So I'm going to get us back into the PowerPoint to see if we have anything left to cover there. Is there anything in the chat, Kelly, that we need to cover?
No, just what is ACH? So ACH is an automatic check payment. So it'll be paying through your checking account instead of mailing a physical check. And so we would just ask for your account information and have you fill that out.
So we're going to skip through these slides, and that was very quick. So if you need a reminder on anything, all of that we went through, those slides are here for you, and you can go back and reference those. And then the follow-up forms we were talking about, that section is shown here in the PowerPoint as well.
And Kelly, we have we'll have the updated PowerPoint presentation on our website.
Yes, I can change that date that we noticed was incorrect, and then we can get Miranda to upload that into the website.
Okay, great. So the only other thing we talked, so due diligence, that's something that, is important to us, making sure that your organization has a list of board of directors, active board, documentation of 501c3 status. So I think Kelly covered statement of conditions. About 6 months after your grant is awarded, I'll be reaching out to your organization to schedule a site visit. So that's a good opportunity to learn even more about your organization and what you're doing and the impact of the grant. And then a final report is due 13 months after the notice of grant award. A little bit sooner if you are applying for the cycle, immediately 1 year after you received your award.
And that will also be in that same follow-up form spot that you just looked at. And so if you do get finished early, with your project and are ready, you can go log back in and find that final report and go ahead and work on that.
All right, 101. And I also put the Calendly link to schedule a meeting with me in the chat. You can contact Kelly if you have Kelly B if you have any questions about the application itself. If you have any questions about what to apply for or the kind of process, feel free to give me a call, or you can contact either one of us and we'll direct you to the right person. So 101, so we're right on time pretty much. And we are happy to stick around and answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you for joining us.
Are there any questions? No. All right. Oh, all right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. You have a good rest of your day and weekend.
We have some things in the chat, Kelly. Do we want to take a peek at those real quick?
I think they're just thank yous.
Just saying thank yous? Okay.
Just thank yous, yeah.
We like thank yous.
All right. All right, great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.